Let's see, how do I? Hey, HC, can you hear me?
Hey. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Nice.
Integrations used during the recording does not appear. What's that mean? Oh, I can share my screen. Hey, Maricela. Are we live today?
I think we are. Hey, everyone.
Oh,
Who's there? I see 4 people here.
Okay, awesome.
Awesome.
I'll share. Okay, nice. I will share. Maricela's from our UX Cafecito.
Ah. Yay, Maricela.
I'll change. I'll do that. Okay, cool. How does it? I'm gonna try this out. Okay, tell me if it works.
Okay.
Is it full screen? Do you see the tab?
No, I don't see the tab. Just the slide.
Do you see something here that says stop sharing or no?
No, I don't see the stop sharing.
Okay. Oh yeah, cool. I can see that. Oh wow, this is great. I'm going to do this.
Maricela says first screen.
Okay, cool.
So we're ready.
I should do that. We have 1 more minute, and I think we'll begin.
Okay.
I wonder if we should leave a few minutes before to get started, like maybe 2 to 3 minutes, and then we begin again. Since the other session's ending right at the same time, like 4:15.
Yeah, I was the other. I was in the session and she just finished. So, and I was in mindfulness.
Oh, nice.
Which
How was it?
She kind of ended up and it kind of related to what we're gonna talk about later. So it's kind of interesting. I was just in another one. Oh yeah, people always misspell my name. They call me like Itzy with an S and like not with a Z, because it just sounds like Itzy. So
yeah. Okay, we're starting to get some people, so we'll wait a few minutes and then we'll get started.
That's funny. That's hilarious. Yay, everybody's getting here. Hey, everyone.
Welcome, everyone. So we're going to wait a few minutes.
Like me, I'm Brooklyn. Hey. Yeah, you're excited. Yeah, we're excited too.
So we'll start in a few minutes. We're going to just let some people trickle in from the other sessions and give them some time to join.
Yeah.
We're starting to get some people.
That's so funny. I'm always on the other side.
I know, right?
This side.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. We'll start here in a bit. We're just going to let some people, give some people time to move from one session to another. Yeah, you can play intro music with a guitar, Itzy.
Oh, yes, right. I actually don't know how to play guitar, but I can play drum or the wet. Oh, thank you. It's from Chiapas. It's like a tejido from Chiapas that my friend brought me from communities there. Hey, let's get into it. Oh, super excited. Nice.
Hi everyone.
Hello, Vivian.
What kind of
Alright. Well, should we get going?
yeah. Can you hear my audio? No. Okay, I was gonna play some music while we waited, but okay. Yeah, should we start? Should we wait? How are other people giving like 10 minutes or 5 minutes? Sorry.
I see there's 30 people in here already, so
Okay,
we can
let's
get
do it then.
all right.
Oh, I think I don't see your screen anymore.
You don't see my screen? Uh-oh.
Oh no, I see you, but it's gray. Am I the only one seeing Itsy gray?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you gray.
No. Why am I gray?
Oh,
Oh,
wait,
people
Joe
will
can see
see
you.
me.
Okay,
Okay.
maybe it's just me then.
Weird.
Okay. Okay, cool. We'll just start it then. Let's see. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Well, let's do this. So, hi everyone. Welcome to this next session. Today, day 2 of Techqueria's summit. We're really excited to be here and be able to share this. We're honored that we can share the space with you all, and that you have taken the time to, take time to spend your hour with us. Before we kind of get into this topic, which is very interesting, a lot of layers, we want to introduce ourselves. So, Itzi, why don't you start?
So, hi everybody. My name is Itzi Ramirez. I am a marketing designer and a UX designer at Open Road Integrated Media. I go by she, her, hers, and I am originally from Mexico, from Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua, and I identify myself as Mexica, which is the Mexica people were actually Mexico is Mexico, which means the belly of the moon, el ombligo de la luna. And on my spare times, I like to do Mexica Aztec dancing. So how about you?
Nice. Thanks for that. Yeah, my name is Isar Buendia. My last name means good day in Spanish. Always have to have a good day. My curse. And I'm a product designer at Netflix, and I go by he, his, him. And my background is Ecuador. That's where my family's from, particularly the coastal city of Guayaquil. And although I have like European background, I also have Incan indigenous connections in my background. And what I do on the side, I really like to play piano, and I play a lot of folkloric Ecuadorian music on the piano. So I really enjoy doing that. So we're really excited for you all to be here, and we wanted to share a little bit about like why are we talking about decolonized design? And Itzi, why don't you give us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well,
Background.
it's been interesting with this topic because I went to Central America for the first time in 2012, and I spent some time in Guatemala, and I was working on a website actually for this organization there that does a lot of work on their like return migrants, people that typically get deported, and like helping them utilize their skills to get employment there. And so I got invited to this Mayan ceremony, and I spent some time with the Mayan communities there, the Cachiquel. And so I got invited, and we were like doing a circle, and I got asked, well, you're from Mexico, like, what do you do out there? Like, do you do any Aztec ceremonies? And I didn't know what to answer. And I was really embarrassed. So as soon as I got back to New York, I started to look for like different indigenous groups. And I realized there's a lot of different indigenous groups here in New York, and especially from all over. And so I got myself into danza, and I started just learning a lot about how people lived and who people were prior to colonization. So that's kind of what got me started on this topic.
Cool. Yeah, on my end, I've always wondered where my roots were from beyond the European influence. Like what's royalty for me? And it wasn't until I went recently to Peru and got a guide, like someone who knew about history, and walked us through the different aspects of the Incan culture. And not only in Cusco, but also went to Cajamarca, Peru, where the last like Incan leaders stood before they were destroyed. And I really learned so much about the culture that I was like amazed that there's this whole entire layer of information and kind of context to the like Latinx, experience that I had never been aware of. And it made me want to get deeper and understand more and see how that, connected back to today. And that got me interested in this topic. And, I think when this opportunity came up, I jumped on on this occasion to kind of dig deeper and learn more about it. So in regards to like a little bit about background about why we're interested in this topic, we also want to take the moment to acknowledge that we are also standing today in land that was, taking care of other people that came before us. So for myself, I'm generally in Oakland, California, but I've been during the pandemic with family in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And there we had the Quapaw territory where there were Quapaw Indians who used to live there, and just want to take that moment to acknowledge, or this moment to acknowledge those folks.
And I am in Canarsie territory, currently called Brooklyn, New York.
Cool. And so before we continue on, just also wanted to acknowledge that, Itzy and I have I'm coming from like Ecuador, Incan perspective. Itzy's like Mexico, Mayan, Aztec. And we know that there in our community, in the Latinx community, there's a lot of different indigenous groups and contexts, and there's a lot of layers and nuances in this topic. So just want to acknowledge that we are kind of talking about this from our perspective and experience, but know that it's not all inclusive or exhaustive in the sense of like, it would take a lot of time to do that. So we'll use some examples of different places we're familiar with, but we know there's a lot more beyond like, even just South America or Central America.
Yeah, so let's get into it. And first we wanted to try to define what is decolonizing design. So what is actually decolonized design? So I looked at some definitions from just other people that I admire, and I came across this one definition that I like really resonated with me. So it's by Ramon Tejada, who runs the Decolonizing Design Reader, who is he's a professor at RISD, and it reads, "Decolonizing design is about making space, sometimes taking space to allow other people that look like me, especially BIPOC, to be active and essential participants around the table." And so that really resonated with me because he talks a lot about taking space and, allowing people like BIPOC people and being participants around the table. So I totally agree. But he also mentions a lot about like Northern European influences and how to move away from that and from learning more from our ancestors, like our grandparents or parents. And so, yeah, he check it out. He has a whole Google Docs about decolonizing design and theories, and it's really interesting. So we can move forward. Yeah, like I mentioned, he talks a lot about like physical, like the representation and not being tokenized, giving agency, being vulnerable, and yeah, all of that, land ownership as well. So, but yeah, I guess let's dig deeper. And so,
Awesome.
but do you want to talk
Thanks,
about?
Itzy. Yeah, so Itzy gave us an intro of like what decolonized design kind of generally is, right? It's about kind of taking, acknowledging of of space of like maybe perhaps people, ideas that haven't generally been part of the space. And so when we think about design, what does that mean for us? So when we think of modern design, as we know of today, we need to look at different movements that made it to where it is today. And when we look at it, we see that a lot of modern designs coming from these movements in Europe. So let's take some time to kind of break it down. So most recently, we have seen the style, the Bahau style. So this is a style that has truly influenced the design community, and it happened around post World War One, when it's particularly like in the German area where this experimentation started happening around the traditional side of art. And generally, art was meant for like those who were considered artists, had that kind of elite title. But this new style and theory kind of wanted to abolish that idea and kind of create this more modern aspect that allowed anyone to think about the future and think about design. And so this philosophy and this thinking led to things like, for example, Scandinavian design or modern design or minimalism. And it's become this kind of theory and style has become a central part of our design curriculum today. And really great things came out of this. But it is very specific to a certain area, right? So let's go even deeper than this. So before Bahau Style, what was the style influencing design, right? And we see the arts and craft movement. So, and this is where the Bahau Style came out of. So an arts and craft movement was during a time in the 19th century when factories, machinery started happening. And we started seeing that folks or reformers were like, oh no, we're going to lose the idea of craft of what art is all about. So they reacted to that by providing these kind of standards that pretty much encourage like the philosophy or more like the what the art and craft of design actually is. So think of like you can see here an example, very intricate like designs and elements that really differentiated like just, I don't know, like an art piece created by a machine versus like an artist. And this flourished all over not only Europe, but even North America. And it's after this that we saw the Bahau style coming out of like, hey, it's not just about an artist, but also about allowing anyone to design. So these two movements from Europe, very, very, they were both trying to really, in a way, democratize design or allow art and design to stay alive. And so it was very helpful, and it brought a lot of good things into design, our design, you could say, community. But one thing that we've noticed that it might have not considered kind of people who came before. The folks who were thinking about this, and particularly indigenous people, right, in North America or South America or other parts. And so when we think about that, how come we don't see those elements in described in how we got to design today? Why? Where are those influences prior to European movements that are part of our history when we think about art and design? So Itzy's going to walk us through some examples.
Yeah. So yeah, what about all the people that were here in this company before colonization? So yeah, we have. I did some digging, so I have some examples. So so for example, the Mayans, they contributed to the number zero. And to tell you a little story, when I was trying to learn JavaScript, I learned.
Oh, Itzy, your audio is a little low. Sorry.
Yeah. So when I was trying to learn JavaScript, I learned that it was a zero indexed language, and that would always trip me up. Because when I was trying to look through the array, I would always start at 1, and you have to start at 0. So I found out the Mayans were actually using the number 0 as a placeholder even before computer programming. And we also had very sophisticated irrigation systems that we still currently use today in modern farming. And so, for example, in Mexico, we had the chinampas in central Mexico, where it's like it was like floating gardens that were, because the Mexico City was founded on top of a lake. So the way that they did their farming, they had these floating gardens where they would grow crops, and some of them are still currently used that way in this place called Xochimilco, which is some people still currently farming that way. And I think in modern society we know as something like hydroponics, where you grow on top of the water. And so we also had um, advanced knowledge in astronomy and art and mathematics. The Aztec Sun calendar has been one of the most intricate calendars and accurate that have been ever done. And for example, the Aztec Sun calendar has 265 days, and each new year it starts at a quarter of the day. So if it starts it begins at 12, and then at 6, and then so on until it makes up an entire day. So we don't actually have a leap year like we do in the Gregorian calendar. And also, they it's really fascinating. The new year begins March 12th, 2020, like in near the spring equinox. So it makes a lot more sense to start the new year when everything is blooming and everything is like the springtime. So thought that was really interesting. And I mean, this is just scratching the surface. There's so much more, many details about it. I could spend a whole entire day talking about it. But and if you want to learn more, if there's this book called The Wali by this guy Arturo Mesa Gutierrez, and he has more detailed descriptions about the way that indigenous people in pre-Columbian times were tracking down the cycles of the earth. And so, yeah, and also the pyramids, there were also artifacts used to track down important astronomical events. For example, in Teotihuacan, you have the Pyramid of the Sun, and it's the sun aligns right on top of the pyramid on summer solstice. And in Chichen Itza, the pyramid casts a shadow, and on March and 21st, and September 21st, just recently, and that's why it's the pyramid of the Kukulkan, which is set to come down, and then again it goes away again during the fall equinoxes. So yeah, they were thinking. And we have in the southern hemisphere, they had the Inca and Machu Picchu, and they also had these aqueducts that were very intricate. You know, in Italy, yeah, they have aqueducts as well, but yeah, the Incan ones are also very interesting, and also farming and irrigation systems. And you have the Incan. Here in Brooklyn, we have a suspension bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge. Well, the Incans were already had these technologies figured out. So yeah, and those are just some of the examples right now that we have. So
Awesome. Thanks, Itzi. So, you know, we ask ourselves, why do we not hear about these influences in modern design? And I think someone in the chat was saying, like, you know, there's connections between this and even some of the Bahau's and arts and craft movement. So, you know, it's all interconnected, but yet it seems like it gets lost. Like, you know, it's most of the European movements are the ones like really get, you know, heard a lot about. But like, how about, you know, if we talk about our heritage, right? We're talking about celebrating who we are. Where does our background as, you know, part of our Latinx background is the indigenous people? Where is that at, right? And I think that leads us to this new other kind of aspect of this topic, which is borrowing without agency, or in other words, appropriation. And the thing is that these groups of indigenous communities are particularly vulnerable to cultural appropriation because they've, you know, people have come in and they've come in with force and have told them, hey, you need to change your ways, you need to follow us, not to celebrate your own culture. whether it be for what, just conquest or religion, whatever it was, these indigenous communities were not able to continue celebrating their art, or even have the agency to say, hey, this is ours, right? And so we see a lot of that kind of control and a little bit, erasure from history of this, the art and aesthetics that the indigenous communities contributed to this field. So we want to give a couple examples how that's still happening today. So, we see an example here. There's this Incan tunic that were worn by folks who were like warriors, right? And this represented like power.
Mm-hmm.
And then this checkerboard is very unique to this type of wardrobe. But we see that today that folks are using this type of style in like fashion. And again, you would not know that it's connected to like the indigenous world, right? And so this was one example of like some of this information being lost. And you have a couple of examples here.
Yeah. So like I was talking about, I went to Guatemala and I saw this really beautiful like embroidery and all these like colorful textiles out there. And when I came back, I was really fascinated by that. So I went to see a lecture by this Mexican anthropologist who came to New York, and she talked a lot about how artesanos were like heavily exploited in Mexico because companies and designers came and took their designs and didn't retribute them or didn't give them any credit. And I did some digging, and this French designer recently had appropriated some of the designs of the Miche in Oaxaca. And so the people found out, the community found out, and caused a social media stir, and it was really controversial. And she was actually forced to take down her designs from her shop because she was selling them for like hundreds of dollars, and they weren't getting any credit. And another very common example is in Tenango de Doria in Hidalgo, Mexico, where they have the Otomi community there, and they have these beautiful, very intricate designs where they borrow from the flora and fauna in the region, and they plasmate their cosmovision, and they're very popular. However, sometimes they end up in pillows, and they get mass produced by larger companies, and oftentimes the indigenous communities don't have a way to fight back. So yeah, those are only some examples.
So as you can see, our art and aesthetics have not only been appropriated, but also repressed. And at times, not even, again, we don't even know about this unless we really dig deeper, right? And again, like most likely, this is the reason that we might not see this in modern design. The force that colonizers came and put on indigenous communities and not letting them have agency to celebrate their culture and art really held them back from being represented and really being thought of in design today. So with that in mind, what do we do? Okay, we know that in history that has happened. And particularly it's part of who we are as like a Latinx community. So now what do we do as designers, as creatives with this information?
Yeah, you can take action. So yeah. So yeah, I learned. I did some more digging, and I learned from this indigenous woman from the Gitxsan Nation in Canada. She's First Nation, and she has a great example of she went to a conference and she learned about this guy Maslow, who had a theory which is called the Maslow hierarchy of needs, which we sometimes use it in UX design. And so she saw that and she was like, oh my gosh, like this is totally like from like my community, and this is indeed a total farce. So she decided to do something about it, and let me explain to you a little bit about what Maslow's um, hierarchy of needs is. So Maslow spent some time with the Siksika nation in Canada, and so he borrowed a lot of the ideas from the indigenous groups there. And so in his he created these pyramids with your basic needs needed to be met, and then it came love and belonging, self-esteem, and then eventually you get to be self-actualized and eventually transcend. And he borrowed a lot, but if you notice on the Siksika, the only thing that he did is he flipped it around, because for the Siksika is at the bottom and him is at the top. So here, because for the Siksika, when you were born, you were already self-actualized, and you were actually self-actualizing with the community. And on the top, they have something that's called cultural perpetuity, and which we'll talk about a little bit more. And so as you can see, it's not really a pyramid; it's a tipi, because there they live. Well, not all indigenous communities live in tipi, but this one happens to, and because they built the structures this way so they can reach to the heavens. And so this is all happening continuously because they have multiple dimensions and different levels of reality. And so it's not really a pyramid, it's more of a circle. So it's different in a way that it's more communal, it's more about the community, and it's not so linear or so individualistic like a pyramid. It's not hierarchical. So in theory, it should be more like a circle. So Dr. Blackstone, she came up with a theory which is called the breath of life, in which is something that she saw in her community, the Gitsan. And in that community, um, you already self-actualized, you are being of service with the community, but you're also getting your needs met, your basic food and water, and you're also belonging. And so it's not really a pyramid, it's a circle, and it's all continuously. And so she realized that what they call cultural perpetuity, which is their main goal, is about your acquiring the knowledge from your ancestors and passing them on to the other generations. Because in the Gitsan, you are 7 generations. You look at 7 generations behind you and 7 generations forward, not just your grandparents and grandparents, but 7 generations back and forth. And so yeah, this moves away from an individualistic approach. It's more where community is more important, and it's important to be a good ancestor and leave and have a ripple effect into your community. So that's what she means by the breath of life. And so she has this quote which I really like, and she says, "We have given the ancestors teachings. We can say that we know it's inadequate, that we are not Indian enough. We hold our breath and our people stop. Or you can nourish that breath. You can breathe it in even deeper, the knowledge of others and understanding at a deep level, and then breathe it forward. That is the breath of life." And that really resonates with me because in Mexicah cosmology, Eheka, which is the wind, which is also represented by the Quetzalcoatl, gives you your first breath at birth. So what that means is that you're already coming with a lot of knowledge from your ancestors, and you're passing it on. So now you're responsible to pass it on. And I think that's really interesting. So yeah, with all of these, how can we reclaim all of this? How can we celebrate that? Well, for me personally, like, the reason that I got into UX design was that I could see the impact of what my work was doing, and so that's why I got into it. So for me, it's more of a sense of personal responsibility into actually the son, worrying about being a good ancestor now, and living, continuing to live the teachings of my ancestors through my work, and in the environment too, caring for the environment, because we see they had a connection with nature, and then you have to take a stand and then you think so. Being is just being personally responsible about the things that I make today and how they're gonna affect and how they impact others and the future generations to come. So that's why it's important to me. And what about you, Isa?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's interesting to see how see someone from another field like psychology, which I know in UX and design we use that a lot, and see how they tap back into the roots and come up with a new perspective and how to approach that field. And I think it's the same thing for me in regards to design. When I think about decolonized design, I think of it's about recognizing my bias in my work and my design approach and my aesthetics, and really just recognizing the bias, but also like learning and empathizing with the design aesthetics and approaches that are coming from those before me, and particularly from groups that have been repressed, erased, and using those things to, considering those things in my work today as I'm solving design problems or, designing experiences in the work that I'm doing. And for me, that's part of like this journey, right? It's a daily learning, but also kind of like we read in the beginning, knowing how to provide space, maybe actually be part of the space as we continue evolving this field of design.
Mm-hmm. Right. So how can we, now that we know this, how can we apply that to our current, as we go on with our lives, in our workplaces, and with the family? So I um, I put together an exercise inspired by my Mexicah sisters, and I adapted it from this book called The Perfect Secret, which is by Serpent. And so I know learning all this can be a lot, and so I wanted to make space to take a minute and heal as a community. So so just to give you a little bit of background, in the Mexicah in ancient Mexico, so young people have to be leaders at a very young age, like around 22. You already have to be a community leader. So they went through some very rigorous trainings in order to be able to become leaders. And so they used to wear these masks, and they used to try to get the qualities from something identifying in the mask. For example, if they were going to wear a mask about an eagle is a symbol for strength, for vitality, for their sharp. So if you wanted to, so you were wanted to borrow, if you were gonna wear an eagle mask, then you wanted to borrow the qualities from that and and become them. And so so I'm gonna have you. I see a gray screen. So I am going to walk. Well, so I came up with this exercise where you're gonna find an archetype, and later on, we're gonna make a mask. But let's try to find an archetype that you identify yourself with. So, oh, I see a green screen. So you're gonna. So I'll talk you through the archetypes. So the archetypes are the Quetzalcoatl, which is in Mexica culture. We have the four directions. We have. And to the east, we have the Quetzalcoatl, which represents the white energy of the wind, the knowledge. Sometimes it's represented by a conch shell because it's a circle. It's like a circle, like a spiral. So it's spiraling down the knowledge. And so if you want to work with this archetype, you're gonna you want to learn something new, or you want to you're trying to learn a new lesson. So you would ask the archetype, what is the lesson that I'm trying to learn? And to the west, we have the Chitatuta, which is the fire, is the renewal, and it sometimes is represented by a layer of skin, because in the spring, if you look at the earth, it peels off a little bit, so you're trying to get rid of, like peeling off something. And so when you want to work with this archetype, you're in need of lighting an inner fire, or you're letting go of something, you're peeling off a layer. So you're gonna ask yourself, what am I trying to let go of? And we have to the south, we have the Huitzilopochtli, which is the river, and it's represented by a hummingbird because the hummingbird is the only bird that can fly to the left and back. And so it's meant to represent the willpower. So when you want to work with this archetype, you're gonna ask yourself, what am I trying to overcome? What obstacles am I having? And to the north, we have the Tezcatlipoca, which is the place of the ancestors, is the underworld, could be the darkness, could be your own enemy, the dead. Although something important to explain is that death doesn't have the same meaning as in the Western world. It's more about taking care of yourself. It's more about like it's a place of rest. It's a process in nature that is necessary. Like right now, we're in the fall and everything is kind of like we're slowing down from like the summer. So when you want to work with this archetype, um, you're gonna ask yourself, what is one aspect of my character that I need to change? What is it that I am not seeing? Or how can I take better care of myself? So we're gonna give you a few minutes to select one of these four archetypes, and we're gonna leave the slide, and then we're gonna talk about it. Does anybody have any questions before?
Yeah, feel free to leave in the chat. So idea here is that you'll select one of these, and what we're going to do is we're going to try to tap into this archetype to do a design exercise that will do it like where everyone's at.
So give yourself a few minutes and
I wonder. And which one are you picking? Let's see.
well, the one from the example, the Tezcatlipoca.
Yeah, so based on like what you'll show in the end.
Yeah, later.
Oh, you have to tell us later.
Okay.
Okay, so we see some people who already are thinking.
Okay.
Well, do okay. Shall we go to the next slide?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. So yeah, you ready? So now that you have identified your archetype of choice, like you're gonna ask the archetype to give you the strength to embody its quality. Okay, come on.
I'll go back to the screen so people can see.
Yeah.
We great if you want someone to share, right? I'm not sure if they can do that. Do people see? Can you request to share your audio on the other side?
Yeah, they can.
Okay, they cannot.
Uh-oh.
It seems. Okay, maybe they can share on the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wait, Amy can. So some people can. Well, if anyone's wanting to share,
Yeah.
you know, right? One or two people want to share why they chose the archetype and what kind of quality they're embodying. Feel free to chime in.
Yeah, or if you wanna come in and like talk about it, don't be shy.
Okay, I think we're good. What should we do? Let's see.
Says it's full where I typically ask, oh, they're having trouble like asking for the request. Weird.
Oscar is saying, I want the power to see if what I can't see about myself. That's really
Mm-hmm.
good.
Cool. Nice. Anybody else want to share something? Oh, here. Amy wants to come in.
How do we accept Amy?
I just added her.
Okay.
I'm just doing audio, but I'm picking Quetzalcoatl because vuela toward anything that is new, novel, and knowledgeable, or that will make me more so knowledgeable. That's all.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Are you still here?
Yes, but nothing else to say.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, where is Itzy? Anyone else want to share something? Yeah, I think Itzy needs to refresh.
Yeah, I refreshed and it picked me up.
Oh, you're back? Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Shall we move on now to
Yeah, I could get
number 3?
7. Okay, number 3. Okay. Okay, so now we're gonna share with you a Figma file or a printed PDF you can print out, and you can print it, or you can work on it on Figma, and you can design. You're gonna see 4 images, and then you're gonna select one of the the archetype, the one that the archetype that you chose, that has the archetype, the direction that you chose, and then you're gonna draw yourself a mask, and you're gonna use it. So so yeah, it starts sharing the links in there. So yeah, feel free to be as creative as you want to be. Oh yeah, so I'll share one that I made for the Tezcatlipoca. So if you
Yes,
could move
1
to
second. Let
the
me take you to the next one. Okay.
So let's say I chose Tezcatlipoca, so I'm gonna look at the image, and it's so when I looked at the image, it has like little mosaics, and Tezcatlipoca have like a band across the nose, and it has qualities of like the jaguar, because it has like, when you see like in some other representations, it has like the skin of like the jaguar. So I included like a jaguar element, and I just outlined it and then just painted it. I use watercolor, but you're going to use any medium that you like. It could be markers, it can be color pencil. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like it's you. So yeah, feel
Awesome.
free. So yeah.
I did not do a mask. I'm sorry. But I think yours, Itzy, was really great. Thank you for sharing.
Okay. Yeah, so go ahead and download the files or access the Figma file. And so yeah, we wanted to open it up for questions as well. Did anybody had any questions?
Let's see if there's any Q&As now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anybody, don't be shy. You have any questions?
And if you do the mask or any this exercise, feel free to share on the designer Slack channel in Techqueria.
Yeah, you can share on social, tag us, or you can share on the Slack channels in Techqueria for the UX or designers. Oh yes, yeah, that story again.
Miguel Reyes says, I love this. I produce a I don't know if I can pronounce that. Ballet that follows a monarchical lineage. Wow, that's pretty cool. Thanks for sharing, Miguel.
Yes, I know. Yes, I know the story of the original Postly. Yeah, and the Kuduchaki. Oh, nice. That's beautiful.
Yes, like I said, we can share. We can wear the masks in our UX cafecito.
Yeah, totally. Bring your mask. Yeah.
Yes, I will try to make one.
Nice.
I think it seems like there's not a lot of questions
Yeah.
coming in, but yeah, I wanted to thank everyone for joining us and taking the time to hear what we're saying. As we said, there's a lot in this topic that we can go into. Thanks. I think we could go deeper, have more conversations around this. And Itzy, I wanted to thank you too for letting me be part of this with you, and I learned a lot just working with you in this project. So thank you.
No, thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing the space with me. Wait, let me take a screenshot. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, you're right. It wasn't just an endpoint and other beginnings. Yeah, thank you, Patty. Thank you, darling.
Hello.
Hey.
This was such a great session. I'm so happy with the way it turned out. And it looks like everyone also got really good things from it. So I think, it was what we intended it to be. And I'm so happy that we were able to put it together. Thank you, Itzy. I just wanted to hop on because, we do have about 12 more minutes until we do closing words, and then we'll be moving on to career consejos. So definitely feel free to interact here with the chat. I see lots of good things. You guys are going to have to teach me how to say these amazing words because I don't think my tongue can do that. I can do sudbai because my grandparents from my mom's side do speak Quechua.
Nice.
But I don't know how to say now what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I say it okay?
Nahuatl. Yeah, Nahuatl. Oh, yeah, Nahuatl is Tlazotamati.
One more time, a little bit slower for me and see.
Tlazotamati.
Tlazotamati. Okay, wow, you learn something new every day. I love it. Oh, Andrew, I see you're also from Peru. That's amazing. My mom's side of the family is from Ayacucho. So they're from like a small little town called Wanda. And that's why they speak Quechua.
Nice. Yeah, when I went to Peru, they had Quechua, like, I guess, schools. I wanted to sign up. I'm like, I want to learn.
That's so cool. Wait, where are you from?
Ecuador. So there's
okay.
Andes Mountains are there too. So there's Incan influence in Ecuador as well. Hey, my wife's or partner is from Peru, and her family actually has property in Ica. So shout out to
you gotta go.
Well, so somebody, Elena was asking a question. What are other ways in which we can decolonize ourselves? Well, I think look into the histories of our ancestors, like look into like what the stories of your grandfathers or your parents, For example, for me, like my dad, he passed away, but he used to say, "Oh, here comes Tlaloc," when it was gonna rain, and so I knew that Tlaloc it was a representation of the rain. So now that I'm here and I'm first generation, I could connect to that. So yeah, look into the stories. Look at what your grandparents did. My grandma used to grow like her garden, and it was like really beautiful. And she used to grow a bunch of herbs like chamomile and like spearmint, and she used to grow like geraniums, and she used to make like little teas. And so yeah, I think that's one way to we can decolonize ourselves.
I think that's super good advice, Itzy. I know I'm gonna sound a little bit weird, but in my decolonizing journey, something that has been super important is actually TikTok. TikTok has helped me a lot to like decolonize my mindset.
Yeah.
Right? I think we were talking about this during the planning sessions, Itzy. And then just finding resources through that, like when Itzy and I first met to kind of craft the session and stuff like that. I remember we talked a lot about this one book that I was currently reading, which is called 1491, and it talks about like the indigenous populations before Christopher Columbus set foot on the Americas. So it talks more about like the technologies that they had at the time and how advanced it really was. So that was kind of like a nice perspective, because I think so much of indigenous history is kind of like usurped by through like that colonizer lens, right? So it was really good. I'm gonna drop it in the chat.
I see a question from Amy on the topic of ancestors. Any thoughts on embrace of the serpent? Today's session reframes some of the symbology for me.
Reframes today's session.
Any thoughts on that, Itzy?
On the topic of on embrace the serpent. Yeah. What do you mean by embrace the serpent? Like oh, well, she wants to come in.
We have Amy.
Hi, yeah. So Hola, ¿qué tal? It's a film that centers around this like colonizer's journey into the Amazons, right? I think, or maybe I'm wrong about that part, but somewhere in the Americas, right? And of course, there's this like sort of shaman, right, that comes in and helps this Western person, or sorry, well, European person kind of go through a journey and whatever. And there is a serpent that is like Quetzalcoatl, right? And ends up kind of like much like the other avatars that we've spoken of earlier, like ancestral avatars, regenerating, right, or renewing that person's perspective. So I guess I just wanted to hear your thoughts on, maybe, okay, what do you think about that archetype in film, right? That sort of like supporting character who ends up helping this person see the wonder of nature and so forth. Although I think it was done rather tastefully, and it was nominated, I think, for I forget what award, but it was a big deal.
Oh, it's a thing.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh well, I haven't personally like seen it, but yeah, I know there's a lot of like people that go and like do ayahuasca and like whitewash, like indigenous cultures and
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I know where you're coming from. Like I know it's like I experienced the same thing with, for example, the film Coco, which is like I was kind of glad, that there was like this like teachings about like honoring your ancestor was kind of like shown, but also kind of hated that it became kind of commercial and kind of like Hollywood, and like now I see like sugar skulls like all over, and it's kind of like, well, what have we learned from everything? So yeah, it's kind of, so thank you for asking that question. But yeah, in the Serpent had many different meanings. It wasn't like the original sin. It was more like the serpent is like a wise, because it roams the earth, and so it's like has a lot of knowledge about like the vibrations of the earth. So that's why it's so important, and you see it a lot through like indigenous cultures, and it's a symbol for healing. And like you can see it in there's like the rod, the caduceus rod. You can see it in there, and it's like healing, and it peels off like its skin, and it's like really interesting. Really interesting. Man. It's not like scary like what we know in.
I see some folks talking about how generally, when we think about indigenous folks from like either Central America, South America, they're portrayed as like, there's some magical person helping the European or even in a negative standpoint, right? I think that's unfortunate because has made, I would say, a lot of folks not see the positive side of these archetypes, right? And these kind of cultural kind of elements that are pretty much part of our history. And I think it does a disservice. Not sure what can we do about it, but I think it's good to just recognize and hopefully we'll see more films be represented better in regards to like our ancestors.
Yeah, this film in particular was made by a Colombian director, Ciro Guerra, I think is his name. So that's why I was asking, like, how are we perpetuating these stories? Perhaps, no sé. Anyway, signing out.
Well, thanks, Amy. I mean, it makes me think of our keynote from yesterday. How there's so I was blown away by that keynote because our own community, we're making so much impact, but even within our own community, we don't notice that what impact we're making, but even notice our kind of our brand, like what makes us different and unique. And I wonder if there's like, I bet there's like nuances that we sometimes reiterate these colonized ideas within our own spaces. So it's like we really need to, consider and take time to be like, why am I doing this? Is this to, to continue on that kind of narrative, or am I helping, kind of tell the true narrative behind the story, right? So I think that's just something we're going to have to continue learning and doing as a community, as we heard, learned yesterday in the keynote.
Yeah,
I see also in the chat, some other people said, Jasmine also mentioned that TikTok, oops, you guys are seeing my dog pop up. Jasmine also mentioned that TikTok has also helped her decolonize her mindset, which I love. I think it's a great space to find lots of good resources and go down a really good rabbit hole, I think, because now I have like a whole book list of things to read in order to continue on that journey. And then I also saw like a comment from Oscar saying like the social norms, definitely big ups to that. Yeah, the different ideas around ownership and punishment, 100%.
Yeah. So true. So connected to another session I happened to stop by today, which they were talking about bringing your full self to work. And sometimes I think what Oscar was saying is like, we're scared of like, maybe we'll be misunderstood or thought, oh, I don't know, like, oh, you're that kind of person. And how that does a disservice, not only, it's really even to the companies who want diversity, right? So it's a really, I think this topic is connected with so many other topics around our community about like owning who we are, like, celebrating our cultura, what makes us who we are.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes to like explain ourselves and explain our culture, because like sometimes people are just curious. Like I have a coworker who's Korean, and he came in one day and he asked me if I was gonna paint my face during Day of the Dead, and I was like, oh my gosh. But I knew he was coming from a good place, so I kind of like started explaining to him what like Day of the Dead mean, and that we don't, that's more recent because of that movie, and it's we go to the cemetery to visit, like somebody who passed away or a relative, and then we put out food and stuff that they would have liked when they were alive. And yeah, and we ended up having like a good conversation, and he told me he was from Korea, from like a small village, and we ended up having a cultural exchange. So sometimes it's just like explaining like a little bit about ourselves, about our culture. Yeah.
Awesome. I think we are coming at time. So just want again, Itzy, thank you for kicking this off and letting me be part of it, and everyone who joined today in this conversation.
Thank you everyone that came. Thank you, Isaac, for like for everything, for sharing the space, and for being here in the Economic Crime. So yeah, we would like to continue this conversation. So yeah, feel free to join Cafecito and can talk about it more. But
we also have Indígena Slack channel in
that's
our
good.
Techqueria. Yeah, feel free to continue the conversation there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Amy. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much. Bye.